Picture this: a nation that once held the world in its grip, commanding attention and exerting influence on a scale never seen before, slowly transforming into a mere shadow of its former self. This is the story of the economy of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or how it's better known, the USSR, an engine that drove one of the most influential nations of the 20th century. Welcome to Globetown, everyone, and if you're new here, consider liking and subscribing. Helps out the channel and allows me to make more content like this. In the early years of the Soviet Union, a series of profound economic policies were implemented, each with a significant impact on the nation's trajectory. Central planning emerged as a cornerstone of Soviet economics. The Soviet government assumed control over key sectors, aiming to direct resources and production according to a centralized blueprint. This approach allowed for a comprehensive and coordinated strategy to meet the country's economic goals. In an effort to modernize and increase productivity, individual farms were amalgamated into collective farms. This shift aimed to create economies of scale, consolidate resources, and promote efficient agricultural production. Simultaneously embarking on an ambitious industrialization drive, massive investments were made in heavy industries such as steel, coal, and machinery, with the goal of rapidly transforming the country into an industrial powerhouse. Behind these economic strategies lay a vision and ideology. The Soviet Union sought to build a socialist society where the means of production were owned and controlled by the state, ensuring equality and the welfare of its citizens. The central planning, collectivization, and industrialization efforts were driven by the belief that a planned economy, directed by the state, could deliver prosperity and achieve self-sufficiency. However, as we'll explore further, these policies also brought forth a range of challenges and consequences that would shape the course of Soviet economics. Now, as we delve deeper into the story of Soviet economics, it's essential to acknowledge the strengths and achievements of the Soviet economic system. One of these being the ability for the Soviet economy to grow at an unprecedented rate, once thought impossible. Through focused investments and centralized planning, the Soviet Union transformed into an industrial powerhouse within a relatively short span of time, really. This industrialization brought about substantial advancements in sectors such as manufacturing, heavy industry, and infrastructure development. Technological advancements were also a hallmark of the Soviet economic system. The Soviet Union made significant strides in areas such as space exploration, scientific research, and engineering. The launch of Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, and Yuri Gagarin becoming the first human in space, showcased the Soviet Union's prowess in the realm of technological achievement. The Soviet economy heavily emphasized heavy industry, placing great importance on sectors like steel production, machinery manufacturing, and energy production. This focus aimed to bolster the nation's self-sufficiency and ensure its capacity for rapid industrial expansion. Additionally, the Soviet Union's commitment to space exploration was extraordinary. It invested heavily in its space program, achieving groundbreaking milestones and becoming a leading player in the global space race. The iconic Soyuz and Vostok missions captured the world's imagination and demonstrated the nation's scientific and technological capabilities. By centralizing decision-making and resource allocation, the planned economy allowed for a strategic approach to development. This enabled the Soviet Union to focus on areas considered vital for its growth, including heavy industry, military advancements, and scientific research. The planned economy aimed to channel resources toward collective goals such as increasing productivity, ensuring social welfare, and strengthening national defense. This approach sought to create a society that, in theory, placed the common good above individual interests. The strengths of the Soviet economic system were evident in its industrial growth, technological achievements, and the prioritization of national goals through centralized planning. However, as we'll soon explore, the system also faced significant challenges that would eventually contribute to its decline. Inefficiency was a prominent issue within the Soviet economy. The centralized planning and lack of market mechanisms often resulted in misallocation of resources and inefficiencies in production. The absence of price signals and profit incentives hindered the economy's ability to adapt to changing demands and allocate resources optimally. The suppression of individual initiative was also another challenge. The emphasis on collective goals and state control limited the autonomy and creativity of individuals. The lack of incentives for innovation and entrepreneurship stifled productivity and inhibited the ability to respond to market signals effectively. The layers of administrative procedures and complex decision-making processes created bureaucratic inefficiencies, delays, and bottlenecks. This bureaucratic apparatus often impeded the timely implementation of economic policies and reforms. Corruption was another detrimental factor. The centralized nature of the economy, coupled with the concentration of power, provided opportunities for corruption to flourish. This not only undermined the allocation of resources, but also eroded public trust and hindered economic development. Despite the planned economy's attempts to prioritize national goals, resource distribution often fell short. The lack of accurate information coupled with centralized decision-making led to suboptimal allocation of resources, hampering productivity and economic growth. These weaknesses and challenges, including inefficiency, the suppression of individual initiative, bureaucracy, corruption, and inadequate resource allocation, gradually took their toll. Economic stagnation and declining productivity became increasingly apparent within the Soviet economy. The centralized planning system, coupled with inefficiencies and lack of market mechanisms, stifled innovation and hindered the ability to adapt to global economic changes. This resulted in a decline in productivity and competitiveness on the global stage. As the world underwent rapid transformations, the Soviet economy struggled to keep pace, leading to a growing disparity between its technological capabilities and those of other nations. Political factors such as reforms, perestroika, and glasnost, initiated by Mikhail Gorbachev, aimed to address economic and political challenges facing the Soviet Union. However, the implementation of these reforms proved challenging and exposed deep-rooted systemic issues. Market-orientated reforms under perestroika brought about unintended consequences, including disruptions in supply chains, price stability, and a loss of central control. These reforms, while intended to revitalize the economy, contributed to increased economic uncertainty. Additionally, the opening up of public discourse and the loosening of censorship through glasnost created an atmosphere of political change and ideological questioning. This led to social unrest, political fragmentation, and a loss of confidence in the Soviet system. Ultimately, a combination of economic stagnation, declining productivity, inability to adapt to global changes, and political factors such as the perestroika and glasnost reforms contributed to the collapse of Soviet economics. The system that once stood as a formidable force on the world stage could no longer sustain itself. The Soviet economic system, with its strengths and weaknesses, shaped the 20th century as we know it and influenced global dynamics. Its rapid industrial growth, technological advancements, and emphasis on collective goals showcased the potential of a planned economy. However, the Soviet economy faced significant challenges, inefficiencies, the suppression of individual initiative, bureaucracy, corruption, and inadequate resource allocation, which all in all hindered its long-term sustainability, coupled with the inability to adapt to global changes, contributed to its eventual downfall.